As a guitar geek, when is the last time you've looked back and said, wow, I've actually experienced some progress? Here's an example. For those of you that have been playing guitar for a long time, when's the last time you thought about that G chord that you make? You know, now it comes easy, but when you first started playing guitar, it was a struggle to even remember where your fingers went. Or for those of you that just started, maybe you learned how to tune the guitar. That's a major accomplishment. When's the last time you actually thought about that and thought, wow, I learned that. I can do that now, and I don't even have to think about it. Well, that's what I'm going to talk about today. In fact, I'm going to wrap up our talk about our pillars of purposeful guitar practice. We've discussed pillar number 1, which was priming your time. We've discussed pillar number 2, which is practicing with purpose. Today, we're going to dig into pillar number 3, which is reflection and evaluation. And this is so important, really more for the positive mindset that you can bring to your guitar playing habit. And ultimately, it starts to set this fulfilling process in motion. Let me explain. We'll get to step 3 and you'll see how it all connects. But reflection and evaluation really does involve 3 distinct steps. Step number 1, I want you to celebrate small wins. Step number 2, I want you to identify areas or opportunities for improvement. And step number 3, I want you to repeat the pillars. Now let me dig into each one of these so you know a little bit more about each. Step number 1, celebrate small wins. This is essential to every guitar journey because it keeps us in a positive headspace. It keeps us identifying progress, and it keeps us feeling good about the time that we're spending with our guitar. And ultimately, that equals fun. So ultimately, it really does infuse our guitar journey with fun and positivity, not in the rah-rah go team way, but in the really kind of a carnal way almost, that internal way where you're like, gosh, you know what? I'm really doing this, and I'm doing a damn good job. Celebrating small wins is essential because a lot of us skip that, myself included. I'm a little guilty of this as well. I focus on the next thing that I need to learn. I focus on what I should be better at. I focus on what other people are doing and think that I should be doing that as well. But I want us as guitar geeks to look back every week, every day and say, what went well for me today? And identify one thing that went well. Identify the one thing that knocked your socks off for that day. Maybe it's the way the pick felt in your hand. Maybe it was your timing. Maybe you finally got that lick or song that you've been working on for months and months. Celebrating those small wins is essential, and that's step 1 when it comes to reflecting and evaluating. Step number 2 is identifying areas for improvement. And this is done, and I want this to be done in the most positive way possible. What does that mean? Well, I find myself saying this, oh, I should be better at that. Oh, I'm not very good at that. That's not really beneficial to your guitar journey. I would much rather you identify areas for improvement by saying, gosh, you know, my pick felt great today, but I could work on my timing. That could be better. It wasn't horrible, but I can see where there's some area for improvement. Or gosh, you know, I really feel strong on my chords, but when it comes to my pick accuracy, I feel like I'm not as solid as I could be. So that's an area where I can improve. It's a subtle difference, but I think that reframing shines a much more positive light on it than saying, oh, I can't do that. I'm not good enough. So ultimately, at the end of your practice session, I want you to think, what went well? That's celebrating a small win. And I also want you to think, what is one thing I could do to improve my playing? What's one thing that maybe didn't go so well, but shows a little bit of area for improvement? And identify that, because ultimately what that does is it sets your intention, which brings us to step 3, and that's repeat the pillars. Okay? And by setting your intention or identifying an area for improvement, you've already set your intention, and that brings you right back to priming your time, which again is contained in pillar number 1. So reflection and evaluation may seem like a big head game, and actually it is. I don't need to, you know, dress this up at all. It is. It's a thought process I want you to bring to your playing that will allow you to identify the progress that you're actually experiencing and allow you to feel really good about that progress that you're making. So I want you to please do your best to celebrate those small wins and again, identify areas for improvement. I think you will notice that it takes what could be kind of the drudgery of guitar practice and puts a much needed positive spin on it that really infuses fun as well. So that's pillar number 3. Remember, reflect and evaluate. It's a small step. It seems like a simple step, and it's a step that gets skipped often, but it really shouldn't because it holds the key to a self-sustaining, positive, and fun guitar playing habit. All right, last week on Acoustic Tuesday, we learned pillar number 2, which was practicing with purpose. We heard from Matt, and he showed off an absolutely glorious Goodall guitar. We took a deep dive into a couple different lutherie schools, Gallup School and the Roberto Venn School of Lutherie, and we learned about Canadian folk duo Casey and Clayton. This week, you've already learned the importance of pillar number 3, reflection and evaluation. Adrian Belew is back, and he shared some more time with us, and he answered some questions. I think you're going to love his answers. We're going to learn about quarter sawn wood versus flat sawn wood in a couple of different arenas, and you're going to learn about a trio of sisters, a trifecta of female songwriting powerhouse and prowess. That's all coming up right after this. I'm Tony Polecastro, and this is the Acoustic Tuesday Show. Guitar geeks, unite. Welcome to Acoustic Tuesday, episode number 116. This is a show where you're going to learn about acoustic guitar gear, discover acoustic artists, and get inspired to live your very best acoustic life. As with all episodes of Acoustic Tuesday, I'm going to share with you my guitar geek list for the week, but before we dive into that, I must ask you a question. Yes, your guitar geek trivia question. Here it is. Short, sweet, and to the point. What brand 12-string did Stevie Ray Vaughan play on his 1990 MTV Unplugged performance? Was it a Martin, a Gibson, a Taylor, or a Guild? Go ahead and ponder that, and at the end of the show, I'll be sure to give you the answer to that question. Now, before I go any further, I must introduce to you the individual behind the computer screen, focusing the cameras, adjusting the microphones, and overall, just being a swell chap. Ladies and gentlemen, Sir Noah Jacob Heckman Jr. the first. Good morning to you, Noah, and happy day.
Tony, good morning to you. I have to give you my thanks for brewing some coffee this morning.
Did you say burning or brewing?
I felt like I said brewing.
Oh, okay.
That's at least what I felt.
I was in mid-coffee swallow, and it's still piping hot, so I kind of was like trying to tamp down the like, and I thought I heard burning, and I think the burning feeling in my mouth led me to believe you said burning. That's
psychologically deep.
Yeah, it's an insight into the constant roller coaster of my brain. I just picture the tracks going in and out of each individual wrinkle of the cerebral cortex.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty fun place in there. Speaking of coffee, Noah, evaluate my performance. So we talked about reflection and evaluation.
Yes.
What's a small win we can pull from my coffee brewing this morning? Is the ratio correct?
Oh, you want to reflect and evaluate?
Yeah, I want to reflect and evaluate my brewing skills.
Well, as I took a sip there, I thought to myself, wow, that's probably one of the mostly balanced pots of coffee that you have made.
Oh, thank you.
That I noticed. It has a nice balance between the coffee grounds and the water.
Thank you. Any areas for improvement? Anything I can improve upon? He pulls out like a scroll. He's like, it just keeps rolling.
Well, since you asked, improvement on coffee brewing.
Usually I
know what you should try.
Okay.
You should try getting like all the tools needed for a really good pot of coffee. So I mean. Like, get your little scale if you need it.
Oh, okay.
Do the weight of your grounds. Do the exact measurements of the tablespoon, 1 or 2, versus how many cups of water.
Okay.
You haven't done that yet.
I have not. It's definitely an area I could pursue. And maybe I should, just to rule it out. I don't think I'm that type of person, but hey, you can't knock it if you haven't tried it.
Correct.
All right. Moving on. Thank you for sharing what you think of my coffee. There's a stray beard hair on the desk today. It's a disaster over here.
Stray beard hairs everywhere.
Well, I want to know what you all think. Yes, you, watching the Acoustic Tuesday show. I've got a question for you that, well, may ruffle some feathers. It may allow us to share our opinions in a nice, open, constructive manner, as guitar geeks do. You all are very respectful. And the question I have for you today has to do with the back and side wood of an acoustic guitar. Imagine your dream acoustic guitar. You can pick any back that you want for this acoustic guitar, but you have a decision to make. It can either be very straight-grained, uniform, or It can be wild and crazy, like exotic wood grain. And I want to know, what would you pick? Would you go for the straight grain, or would you go for the exotic, wild, crazy grain? What's your reasoning? Well, let me tell you what I think. This is actually a really tough question now that I think about it. I didn't practice answering it, so I'll practice answering it in front of you all. To be honest, my gut says, I would go for the crazy exotic grain because I love the look. I love that type of tone wood where you look at it, and each time you look at it, you see something different. Maybe a face, maybe a butterfly, maybe a troll, maybe a giant, maybe the Jolly Green Giant. I don't know. I like being able to look at a piece of wood and be like, wow, kind of see something different every single time. It's almost like art in and of itself. Nature made art. Pretty cool, right? And then I think, gosh, you've got the straight grain stuff, which is, uniformly cut, probably quarter sawn to the T, and it just is predictable, it's consistent, it's beautiful in and of its own right. So I think of those two options and I think, gosh, isn't there a middle option? Can I take the presidential route and just make everybody happy? No, I'm gonna go with the exotic wild grain because it's so cool. I just think it's so cool. I love being able to look at the back of a guitar and be stunned every single time. And I have that on my Bourgeois OMSC that I custom ordered through Eddie's Guitars. That's got a beautiful piece of Cocobolo that Matt hand selected, and every time I look at that, I'm just stunned. I'm like, what happened to this tree? This is like a magical fantasy tree. And the same is true for my large sound hole Bourgeois OM that I got or my OMC that I got at Heartbreaker Guitars. It's flamed mahogany. It's very cool. It's got this 3D effect. So that's what I think. I'd go for the exotic grain. No, I'm gonna kick it over to you. What's your take on this question?
Well, I am the opposite. I am not I don't see myself as a flashy kind of guy.
Okay.
I'm very plain and simple. My favorite color combination is black and white.
Fair.
You're talking about this, and it's making me go deep. We've been very deep psychologically this morning.
Yeah, we're just hitting it. We're just going for it.
However, so it would be my choice to have the straight, plain grain.
Okay.
But I really like do you not have a Martin is it the Tux that's the bird's eye maple?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I'm okay with it being on maple for some reason, but on darker woods,
that kind of makes sense a little bit.
I like the plain stuff.
Well, I feel like maple, although even it can be crazy figured, it offers this sort of uniformity still. Like if you look at a piece of flame maple, it's usually uniformly flamed. Like think of a classic, like a 59 Les Paul top. Something like that where you could see each little ridge of figure, and it's very predictable. It's very like evenly distributed. So that makes sense. I guess that would be the middle answer.
Okay.
I think.
All right. Yeah, what's it called? I do like if it was plain straight grain, but it had like little character. Isn't there a term for that where the wood has like it just something happened now, like when you get a knot,
sure.
in a tree.
Yeah.
And so you got the plain straight grain, but then in one area it all circles around because it was like a knot. Deep.
Some sort of anomaly in the tree, whether it be a stem or a knot or something like that.
That's pretty unique.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have to go deep on this because there's something coming up that may actually help inform your decision on this question. It's the whole notion of quarter sawn versus flat sawn. What's the deal? I actually checked in with Matt at Eddie's Guitars about this. We'll get to that in a second. But in doing more research, I found this old video. I want to say it was from maybe 97 or something like that. It was very much a VHS video of Bob Taylor and, what's his name from Pacific Rim Tonewoods? I want to say it's Steve McCreary. That could be completely wrong. That might be the guy at Collings. Anyways, it's the fellow from Pacific Rim Tonewoods. Him and Bob Taylor are out looking at these three enormously naturally felled spruce trees. This one was 300 years old. And Steve, I think his name is Steve. I'm kicking myself now because I should have remembered. I should remembered, but he's on this log. It's a chunk of this enormous tree. And he is taking wedges and splitting the log and saying, oh, yep, this is going to be a good piece of guitar wood. And he's like looking at the tree and identifying all these really awesome things. I was mesmerized by the expertise that he brought to it, but also it exposed this huge gap in my own knowledge about how wood is sourced. I mean, I get it. A tree grows in the ground, you chop it down, boom, it becomes a guitar. There's actually a lot of steps in between, and he was even explaining why there's price variations in certain types of wood, whether it's treated correctly, treated not correctly, or just the overall quality, the natural quality of the wood. So it was fascinating. I just wanted to share that because I know that you all are guitar geeks and you could get excited with me. I'll try and remember to link to that or feature it in a future episode so you all can see. It's pretty darn cool. But that brings me to this whole notion of, you hear this all the time. Oh, it's perfectly quarter sawn, or oh, that's flat sawn. Okay, what the hell's the difference? A saw is a saw, and you cut it up, and it becomes a guitar, right? Well, there's actually a lot of differences, and ultimately, it may impact the way that the wood grain is presented on the back of the guitar. So this may actually influence your answer to that question, straight grain versus exotic grain. I had a chance to sit down with Matt from Eddie's Guitars. We talked about this at length, and I don't know if we necessarily came to a decision, but you can certainly be a fly on the wall to our conversation. Here it is. Okay, Matt, I don't know if we have a definitive answer to this next question, but I think it's one that we can maybe volley back and forth and come up with some interesting angles and considerations. And that is, what's the deal with quarter sawn versus flat sawn, especially when it comes to back and sides? And
Sure.
I think this is one of those topics that'll probably be debated about for probably centuries until the end of time.
Yeah. Oh, well, let me just go ahead and give my disclaimer here.
Okay.
I'm not a builder or a wood buyer.
Yeah.
I know what looks nice and I know what sounds nice when it's in guitar form. So let me just get that out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for a long time, quarter sawn back and side wood has kind of been what is desirable, what is implied that is right. I think the tradition of Martin and Gibson, showing us a lot of the quarter sawn rosewood that came from that era.
Yeah.
I think it implies a quality that that may or may not be reality.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is, played a lot of quarter sawn Brazilian rosewood guitars, both new and old, that are fabulous.
Sure.
I think a lot of folks out there are quick to speak ill of flat sawn wood.
Yeah.
Again, and kind of implying lesser quality or
like the trash.
the leftovers,
Yeah.
kind of thing, or chop this thing down and get the most yield out of it. Who cares what it ends up like?
Yeah.
There's a lot of implication there, I think, in that direction. For reference, for folks who maybe don't know, quarter sawn wood usually is pretty, but not what I would describe as flashy.
Yeah.
Flat sawn wood typically is really wild, a lot more dramatic looking, more grain stuff happening, figuring stuff happening. Usually that's the case, at least. So with that, a lot of folks out there, and myself included, visually are drawn to flat sawn wood.
I was just going to say, one of the things that has always struck me and almost drawn me towards flat sawn wood is it is visually intriguing.
Yes.
It's kind of like, what is that even a tree from this planet?
Exactly. Yeah. Some of the wild grain orientations are really, it's like almost psychedelic stuff.
Yeah, it's really wild.
And it's neat that it's still natural, you know. But man, I've played some flat sawn guitars I would put next to any amazing, like top tier quarter sawn back and side guitar any day of the week. I can't tell you I have the experience that my ears tell me quarter sawn wood is better than flat sawn tonally. Right. I can't claim that. There are people out there that are fast to claim that, and if their ears experience that, go with it. Absolutely.
Yeah, for
absolutely. Sure. I know, again, going back to from kind of a builder standpoint, there are some usually smaller builders out there that will only build with quarter sawn incredible wood. Yeah. I think of Circa Guitars, John Slowbod.
Yeah, we were just talking about that last night.
I mean, you see his stash of wood he makes guitars with, and it's like, what guitar did you take that from that already existed? Like that wood didn't exist again, It's
like a pile of absolute perfection.
Exactly. Exactly. And you know, his guitars sound amazing. How much of it is attributed to that quarter sawn wood? I don't know. But I mean, I think he could build an amazing guitar out of a pile of scrap wood, no problem,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I can't tell you quarter sawn sounds better.
Sure.
You know, to some people, maybe it does.
Yeah.
And if you're drawn to it, awesome.
Yeah.
If you're drawn to the visuals and enjoy the sound of flat sawn, awesome. You know.
One of the interesting things that I want to share, and again, I'll also join Matt in the category that I'm not a builder, and I don't know as a definitive answer to this question, but when I worked at Weber Mandolins, again, I was a sales guy. I wasn't even out in the shop. However, I spent a lot of my time talking to the folks.
Sure.
That was my main interest. One of the things that I noticed is that if we used a flat sawn, like say one piece back for a mandolin, it would have a little bit more body and almost what I would perceive as a little bit more flexion. Again, this terminology is not. Don't quote me on any of this. This is just an observation. And then the truly quarter sawn, like beautifully book matched maple backs. I mean, we're dealing with much thicker pieces here that are carved, so different ball game. Those were a little bit more punchy and direct.
Sure.
And again, I don't know if that's a perception based on somebody telling me this was flat sawn versus quarter sawn, or if I was to be put to a blind test. There's no way on earth I'd be able to pick it out.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't be. But I will say this again, on the visual end of things, I've always found myself drawn towards flat sawn because I think it shows the grain patterns in the wood from a different angle and a different perspective, and it's stunning.
Yeah. Well, and it's probably worth mentioning as well that we're pretty specifically talking back and sides.
Yeah,
material.
absolutely.
If you're talking neck blanks, you know, people are using quarter sawn mahogany or maple or whatever else.
Yeah.
I mean, that's for structural purposes.
Sure.
Soundboard material, always quarter sawn
Yeah.
for structural purposes.
Correct.
In that light, if you look at why they use some of these different woods that are quarter sawn in some of these structural integrity places that are important, there's some interesting thoughts that could be had to, well, what's that doing on the back then?
Right.
I don't know if there's a whole bunch of stress or load on the back of a guitar.
Sure,
Again,
sure.
I don't make them, so I don't know that intimate detail. But it's an interesting topic to think about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the bottom line, we're definitely not coming to a decision here, but
Not
you
at
know,
all.
we talked about this before we started filming. Like, how are we going to end? How are we going to stop this conversation? Because we don't really have an answer. And bottom line is, and I think we agree on this: if it sounds good, it is.
It's good.
And
Exactly.
It doesn't matter how the back's cut.
I would never let somebody say, to me at least, or certainly wouldn't hope somebody would say to somebody else, man, you shouldn't buy that. That's flat sawn stump wood or something. You know, the thing sounds good. I mean, if you like the way it looks, who cares? I mean, it's an amazing guitar, probably made by somebody who really knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's just me.
So there you go. Use your ear and follow it. Thank you, Matt.
Exactly.
Appreciate it.
Of course.
Okay, so I didn't feel right not necessarily coming up with a solid answer because I felt like we were maybe straying into territory that we know a little bit about, but there's certainly a lot more to know. So I dug even deeper. I found this woodworking video where I think it's the Woodworking Guild of America. I'm pretty sure. I want to give credit where credit's due. And the gentleman actually lays out a cross-section of a piece of wood, and he actually draws on it to show you what flat sawn is versus quarter sawn, and ultimately how the grain is presented. So take a look at this, and this will inform your answer even more.
That boards are commonly taken out of trees, like this one. Plain sawn and quarter sawn. I've got examples of each one here. Here's a plain sawn board, and you can see the big cathedral or flame pattern in the face. Here's a quarter sawn board. Face looks quite a bit different. It's got a very straight grain to it. Additionally, it's got these flecks in it. Now let's have a look at a log and see how this actually works out. For plain sawn, my first cut here is going to be right here through the center of the tree. Now if I were continuing my plain sawn process, all I would have to do is keep cutting and cutting all the way up through to the edge of this log. Now, if I asked you to figure out a way to make these cuts, a little bit of thought, I bet you could do it. We could take this log, lay it on a sawmill, and very easily cut a slab, cut a slab, cut a slab, and it'd be pretty easy to make these cuts and get these boards. That's plane sawing. Quarter sawing is a little bit different. In a quarter saw cut, we're going to come this way. And literally start with a quarter here that we've taken off the log. Then another cut. Now here things get a little tricky. I'm going to go this way. So now if we do the same exercise, and I ask you to think about getting these quarter sawn boards out of a board, I bet you're going to think, well, that's going to be a little bit harder to do. I got to quarter it first, then I've got to cut it, turn it, cut it, turn it, cut it, turn it. So as a result, quarter sawn material is more expensive than plane sawn material. So a good question would be, why would we bother messing with it? So let's start with our boards again. This plane sawn board, actually, when we look at the end grain of it, really tells us the story. Here on the end grain, we're looking at the annual rings of this board. The annual rings in this case, they're kind of in a frown shape. They're pointed down. In a piece of wood, the wood has a tendency to cup in a direction opposite the annual rings. So this board with its rings pointed down would have a tendency to cup up. This board would have come out of the log something like this. So if I take my marker and I draw in our annual rings for you to see, remember that we've got kind of a bullseye like this of annual rings going through the tree. So this board with its rings pointed down was somewhere like this in the tree. Quarter sawn material, let's start again by looking at the end grain. The end grain on this one, we can tell it's quarter sawn because the annual rings are about 90 degrees to the face instead of rounded. So I might ask you, well, which way is this board going to cup? And I'm actually flipping a trick question there. This board's not going to cup because the annual rings are perpendicular to the face like that. Now the way this one came out of the log would have been out here someplace where the annual rings are coming through like this. So this board is cut out here. Now why would we do that? Well, the annual rings are going to help make this board more stable. So quarter sawn material is much less prone to cupping and also less prone to expansion and contraction. The other thing that a lot of woodworkers like about it is that the grain on this piece is very, very straight. Remember on our plane sawn piece, it had some big flame patterns to it, some big cathedral in it.
You know you're a guitar geek when you spend the majority of your day looking up videos on woodworking and how wood should be treated for guitar building. Yes, I'm guilty, but you know what? I'm proud of it. I'm Tony, and I'm a guitar geek. And I'd like for you all to come forward too if you feel like you're a guitar geek. It really helps you open up to the guitar geek community. Speaking of the guitar geek community, I've got some comments from episode number 113. Now, this is a show where a lot of discussion happened, a lot of questions were asked in the comments, and I asked you a question about effects on acoustic guitars, good, bad, ugly, or otherwise, and you all certainly spoke up, and I'm going to get to some of those comments here in a second, but the first one is actually a question coming from someone by the moniker The Phage. Hey, Tony. What's your opinion on the new Taylor Grand Pacific body shape? Would really like to hear your take. Love what you do. Thanks for the amazing content. Well, you're welcome, and thank you for supporting and watching the show. Speaking of Taylor's Grand Pacific body shape, I was actually just thinking about this the other day. Taylor sent me both the mahogany and the rosewood version of their new Grand Pacifics. I want to say 517, 717. And I really find them unbelievably comfortable. Purely from a body shape standpoint, to hold and to play these guitars, it feels like it just fits like a glove. They're really easy to play. They're very comfortable. The attention to detail, I think, is I mean, talk about scrutinizing over tiny little details. You know, the silent satin finish. I know some people are like, silent satin finish, whatever, what a gimmicky name. It's actually really comfortable, whatever you want to call it. Satin finish, silent satin, super duper sheen, whatever you want to call it, who cares? Functionally, it's actually really comfortable to play. It's comfortable over on your picking hand arm, and it's also comfortable on your fretting hand along the neck. And ultimately, it feels nice, again, regardless of what it's called. In terms of tone, I vacillate back and forth between liking the mahogany one and liking the rosewood one. And I've never played a dreadnought with such distinction and articulate character that is stiff feeling, crispy feeling, like in the Taylor way, but still offering some body. I want to say that the projection in the mid-range is, I think, what really stands out. You know, I talked about the Boucher HG56 as an articulate guitar that still held body. That guitar, I think, is still in a class in and of itself. We're not talking about that one, but just to kind of define my descriptors here, that guitar had this pronounced, amazingly beautiful and lush bass and still held true to each string speaking clearly. That's that guitar. Let's talk about the Taylor Grand Pacific. Beautiful dreadnought sound. It does have lush bass, but it's a little bit subdued. But what I love about this guitar is the mid-range projection. Guitar is a mid-range instrument, right? When you're in a bluegrass jam, you got a banjo, mid-range. You got a mandolin, mid-range. You got a bass, low-end. You got a dobro, mid-range. And then you got the guitar, mid-range. Of all those instruments, the guitar is generally speaking the least powerful. The Taylor Grand Pacific with the V-Class bracing offers some laser-like projection, specifically in the mid-range, that, in my opinion, allows it to speak super clear. And that's what I love about that guitar. I know that's not necessarily a derivative of the shape. However, I think it needs to be mentioned because I still haven't sent those guitars back. They were here on review, and I'm just trying to hang on to them as long as humanly possible because I've really enjoyed playing them. So that's my thoughts on the Taylor Grand Pacific. A short question, a long answer, kind of my style. Any words on that, Noah?
Which part of what you said?
Me answering questions, basically.
No, I think that's great. It's good. I think that's exactly what people want to know.
I get on a roll.
I know.
You know what I mean? And then as I'm thinking, other thoughts are popping into my head. It's amazing I get any sleep at night.
I know. Well, you are a guitar geek. And so I was just thinking about what you were thinking. I was thinking about what you might be thinking about Taylor and you holding onto those guitars, you know, where if it's a small bench luthier, they're going to know those guitars are here.
I know.
But with someone like Taylor, you know, who's going to notice two guitars?
I know, and I almost was like, maybe I should say that, you know, I shouldn't say anything about having them still, but I can't do that. I'm an honest guy. I love the guys at Taylor. They've always treated me wonderfully, and that's not why I say favorable things about the Grand Pacific. The Grand Pacific is a great model. In fact, my interaction with the Grand Pacific specifically came from me. This was episode 26 or something, way back. I was actually questioning V-Class bracing, and that started a whole discussion between myself and Andy Powers. I went out there, had a chance to spend some time with Bob Taylor, Andy Powers, Jay, and some of the other folks in the Taylor crew there. And it was just a cool discussion, you know. Andy and I had a really great discussion, and I wasn't necessarily sold on the V-Class thing. This was the first iteration, and now we see it on the Grand Pacifics, and I am certainly sold on the Grand Pacifics above all other models. I'm a huge fan, so I'll quit beating that dead horse. Okay, moving on to the next question. Clear out your schedule because it's another question coming from from James Morrison. Hey Tony, are Resonator guitars generally set up with higher action than other acoustic guitars? I ask because playing slide on my Martin is difficult because I have low action. Also, I have to mute the back side of the strings with my fretting, slide hand, and the front side with my pick. Too much noise otherwise. Do Resonators have this problem also? Well, let me divide this up. So first of all, in regards to action, that's really player preference. Resonators can have either standard low action for just traditional playing, or they can have higher action. And the kind of line of separation is, if you find yourself liking the tone of a Resonator, but not playing slide at all, you just get it set up to play like you would a regular guitar, because you'll get the tone, you'll be able to play it comfortably, and voila. However, if you play slide, to minimize that fretboard noise, sometimes the slide runs into the frets and it's like grrr, grrr, grrr. You can hear it. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but if you don't want that, generally speaking, you'd get the instrument set up with a little bit higher action so you can avoid that. On to the next question about muting the strings. I was trying to say this earlier and I was getting really confused, so I'm going to try and say it here, and if I cause confusion, I promise I'll do my best to clear it up. Playing cleanly on a resonator guitar, specifically with slide, there's a necessary skill involved with that, and you've identified that, James. It's muting with the fingers behind the slide. Say you wear the slide on your ring finger, you're actually muting the strings with your index and middle, and then on your picking hand, a lot of times you're muting the strings that aren't being played. This is a great technique to learn, especially with slide, and I say it because of this. If you only know how to play slide in a dirty, sloppy fashion, you never have the option of playing clean. If you know how to play slide in a very clean fashion, you can always intentionally play sloppy, right? It actually adds to your repertoire if you know how to play clean, because then you can say, okay, well, if I want to play sloppy, if I want to hear that extra noise, think like, dirty old blues sound, you can kind of relax on some of your cleaner playing technique and introduce some of that noise. But if you only know how to play sloppy, you don't have that option. So it's a great technique, whether your guitar is set up specifically for that or not. The technique you're working on and playing clean and muting the strings is absolutely perfect. So keep up the great work. The next comment comes from Dee Dee. This is in response to our effects on acoustic guitars. Yay or nay? She says this: my thoughts on acoustic guitar effects? Hell yeah, if it fits. Love it. Nothing wrong with being a little creative, and how fun would practice be? I totally forgot to mention this, and I think she brings up a great point here. If you feel like, God, practice is just no fun, get an effect, because it'll just blow your mind. It certainly will drive off your spouse. I was going to interview Whitney about this, but I still can't find her since I bought all those effects pedals. I'm still searching. She goes on to say this: if it sounds good, it is good. Now, as for Billy, I totally dig his playing and singing. Billy Strings, that is. Needless to say, he's a talented guy, that's for sure. Needless to say, he is a talented guy, that's for sure. And by the way, great show, guys. I'm going to work on my enunciation. It's going to be good, and my phrasing. It's going to be even better next episode, I promise. Travis N. says this: I have a solid split decision on this. I don't think I'll ever use effects for my own playing because my goal is to be a competent back porch picker. I just want to be good enough to amuse myself and a few close friends. I want to pick up my guitar, a pick, maybe a capo, and go right into playing. For listening to music, it depends. Brian Sutton is the ideal guitar player for my listening tastes, but a well-placed, well-thought-out effect is fine. Having said that, I still haven't given Billy Strings a good listen, so that will be playing in the background for work today. We'll see if my thoughts on effects change after that. I have a feeling they just might. Michael O says this about the effects: so in my opinion, when one plugs in an acoustic guitar, there goes the neighborhood. I don't think it's a sin, and effects can be cool, but it ain't acoustic guitar. I gotta say, I like his line of thinking there. Our next comment comes in the form of a question from somebody who you may recognize associated with Boucher guitars, none other than JP Cormier. He watches the Acoustic Tuesday show. He's a guitar geek just like the rest of us. Welcome to the family, JP. He says this: what city are you out of? Well, we are tucked right next to the Bridger Mountain Range in Bozeman, Montana, about an hour and a half, hour if you're driving crazy, to Yellowstone National Park. It's a great city, and actually it's funny I say that today because it's freezing out. Like, it's actually below freezing, it's below zero. I walked the dogs this morning, and my beard was just a block of ice just on my face, just wiggling around. The dogs didn't seem to mind, but I was cold. Anyways, moving on. Tim K is I was going to call him an honorary Canadian.
What is that?
I don't know. Tim K is one of our Canadian viewers. I wanted to connect JP and Tim because I'm pretty sure JP is from Canada as well. Tim says this: so happy for you, Tony, that you've had a chance to give these Bouchers a try. They're fantastic guitars, and I love both of mine. In fact, I remember Tim mentioning these guitars to me quite some time ago, and I was too happy to be able to play them. Any chance you could share the bluegrass rhythm thingy you played in TAC? It's like the advanced version of the exercise in beginner flat picking in the song vault. Anywho, so glad you got to try the Bouchers. You deserve to keep the HG56. To answer your question, I sent the HG56 back it was a sad day. I kind of slowly packed it up and thought, maybe I could just, I don't know, maybe I could get this one past Whitney, but I don't think so. I want to say the case was a different color, and that's one of the reasons why I couldn't get it past Whitney. But in terms of adding that to a lesson, absolutely, we can dig into some bluegrass rhythm in Tony's Acoustic Challenge for sure. So those are the comments from episode 113. I want to thank everybody for taking time to leave out comments. Just because I didn't read yours did not mean I didn't enjoy it. In fact, I read through all those comments, and I love the discussion that's created. I love the community that you all have created because it's just so cool. You guys can share your opinions, you can support one another, cheer each other on, and ultimately, it's a bunch of awesome guitar geeks, and I'm just proud to be a part of it. So thank you for leaving the comments, and thank you for watching as well. All right, coming up, we've got an artist for you that comes from a very interesting recommendation. Al Team. The guy's name is Al Team. I'll explain here in a second. We got to visit the mailbag, and in fact, it's amazing the UPS driver didn't fall over when he was bringing all the stuff in. There's so much. And, of course, your trivia answer is coming up. But first, if you all remember back to episode 102, Adrian Belew was the featured artist. He is a percussive acoustic guitar player. He plays Furuk guitars, and he does so in an extremely mesmerizing fashion. He creates these beautiful melodies. He creates these wonderfully intricate percussive patterns. And he was our featured artist. You all raved about him. And guess what? Well, he's back because he answered some of our Acoustic Life questions. So I want to thank Adrian for taking time out of his busy touring schedule for answering these questions that you're going to hear the answer to right now.
What's up, everybody? Adrian Belew here to answer a few Acoustic Life questions for you. First is going to be an under-the-radar artist I think you should be listening to, and I'm going to throw a curveball with a predominantly electric player, although he does play acoustic, by the name of Nick DePiro, D-E-P-I-R-R-O, and his band Night Verses, as in the verses of a song. He's really inspiring, really interesting, and very experimental. His stuff tends to get heavy at times, although he's got quite a collection of different stuff you can check out, ranging from soft, clean, to electronic, to some heavy stuff on electric and acoustic guitar, and it's all instrumental, so be sure to check him out. The second question is going to be a guitar that is my favorite and why, and I'm going to be a little biased here in saying that my favorite acoustic guitar is probably my new signature model 7-string from Furuk Guitars. Furuk is based out of the Czech Republic, and they recently brought me out there to design my own 7-string acoustic guitar as a signature model according to my specs. It's an incredible guitar. It's very solid, very unique sounding, and has that full range that I'm looking for with the lower register. I'm really inspired by a lot of band music, especially metal, using 7-string and 8-string guitars. So I wanted to take a stab at designing my own, and I'm very happy to say that we're going to be debuting that next year. So be sure to keep your eyes and ears open for the Adrian Belew signature model 7-string acoustic guitar from Furuk. And then third is an acoustic piece of gear I can't live without, and being mostly a live player that tours quite often, I usually like to play plugged in and standing up with my stage volume and my stage sound, because I think that you should always be practicing as if you're performing. So there's a lot of gear I had to choose from, but I'd say the heart of it, the very first piece of gear in my signal chain, is going to be a Radial Tonebone PZ Pre. I've been using these things for years. Radial Engineering is an incredible company based out of Vancouver, British Columbia, and this is their acoustic preamp that goes at the front end directly from my guitar into my digital interface live. And it kind of sculpts my sound. It's got a lot of circuits that are already with built-in cuts that are pretty useful for the acoustic guitar live, as well as its own effects loop, a tuning slot, an out for amps, and a post and pre EQ, as well as 2 inputs with piezo boosters. So it's a pretty awesome piece of gear. I'd say next up is going to be my Apollo Twin from Universal Audio, but if you ever want to check out my own gear rundowns, check out my channel. But I'm really glad to have been featured here on Acoustic Life, and I just wanted to say thanks for checking it out. My name's Adrian Belew, and cheers, Tony. Guitar Geeks Unite. Adrian Belew, over and out.
Well, thank you again, Adrian, for sharing those answers with us, and also for just making awesome music. If you all haven't picked up his newest album, I believe it's entitled, it falls under the artist name, the Adrian Belew Project. I believe the title is String Slinger. If that's not the title, at least look up that song because it will be stuck in your head. Noah has hummed it or beatboxed it many a times here at the studio. To varying degrees of success, but he tries, and that's all I'm judging him on. But actually, funny thing is, so we were at the studio, this was a couple weeks ago, and I saw on Facebook that Adrian Belew and why is his name escaping me? Oh my gosh.
Antoine
Dufour. Sorry, Antoine. Antoine Dufour, we're playing a show together in Chicago, my old stomping ground. So I sent a message to Antoine and I said, make sure that, what did I say? I said, make sure to steer Adrian towards bourbon and not scotch, because when Antoine was here, he's a big scotch guy and these guys all teamed up on me. Anyways, I think it's one of the first times I drank scotch. He sent me a picture of Adrian doing this, drinking some bourbon, which I thought was really cool. I don't know if he was drinking the bourbon. The glass was in front of him. So anyways, I apprecited that. So
He didn't really drink it.
he may not have. It might have just been a photo op. Either way, I appreciated it the same. So it's pretty cool. Hey man, how about a show with those two? How cool would that be?
That would be pretty awesome.
Ugh, man.
I was thinking that was around the time that Antoine had that picture where he was like in a combine, like in a cornfield or something.
Okay, I guess this is just, I got to tell everybody, if you're a guitar geek, follow Antoine and Adrian on Facebook or Instagram or whatever social thing that you use. Antoine, did Antoine post a picture of him in a big piece of farm equipment, right?
Yeah.
Which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah. I know.
Like Farmer Antoine?
Yeah, Canadian guy comes to an honorary Canadian, I think he is, right?
Yeah.
Comes to the Midwest and has to get in a combine or some corn chucker machine.
I picture Adrian and Antoine driving that to the gig, like pulling up, like the mean streets of Chicago. They pull up on the combine.
I am definitely a city boy. I saw that picture and the first thing I thought was, man, that's got to be dusty.
Yeah.
That's like a lot of dust. I just wanted to cough looking at that picture.
Okay, well, moving on. I'm going to dig into a guitar arsenal. We've got one guitar arsenal to share with you today. The well's getting close to empty, and I'm a little worried that the guitar arsenals have dried up. I don't think so. I know the power of you guitar geeks, and I would love to see you all submit some guitar arsenals at acousticlife.tv. When you go there, there's a submit link in the top menu. Just click on that. You can upload the picture of your guitar arsenal. Don't forget to get your guitar arsenal shirt. Put that on. Take a picture amongst all your guitars and submit it at acousticlife.tv, just like Russell S. did. Russell is from Northport, Alabama, and he says this. Hello, Tony, Noah J. Heckman, and acoustic guitar geeks everywhere. I hope that this message finds you well. I've included photos of my guitar arsenal, and they are as follows. A 2003 Taylor 110E, a 2010 Taylor 210 CE, an Orangewood Ray 2008, a Mexican Fender Strat, and an Ibanez RG6003 FM. Nothing fancy, but they get the job done. I'd like to thank you for all the value you add to my life week after week. I look forward to the show every Tuesday when I get home from work. Thank you very much, and have a great day. A great day indeed, Russell. Thank you for sharing your guitar arsenal. Thank you for watching the show and enriching our lives as well with your guitar arsenal. I want to say, I'm pretty sure no guitars were harmed in the photography session of this guitar arsenal. You'll notice that the guitar arsenal made its way to different bodies of water. And then I believe the Taylor 110 ended up next to a waterfall. That's the one that scared me the most. But knowing that you're a guitar geek, Russell, you probably took all necessary precautions. I'm sure there was a safety harness involved. I'm sure that there was a life jacket nearby, and I'm fine with that. Very cool picture and very cool backgrounds. I'm assuming it's in Alabama. I don't associate lakes with Alabama. I thought Alabama was dry, but I guess that's where the swamp is, right? Is there a swamp in Alabama?
I don't know much about Alabama. I could tell you about Louisiana, but
wow,
I know Auburn is in Alabama. Right?
Okay.
Right?
No,
yeah.
I don't think so. Is it?
Yeah, Auburn. Isn't it the school? Whatever.
A bunch of geography
Isn't there pretty much a lake everywhere?
Well, yeah, but I mean, some places I guess are more dry. I guess I don't know. I don't know what I'm thinking.
That's the South.
Actually.
It's very humid.
Okay. Well, moving right along. As you may know, we just concluded a major fundraiser for Guitars for Vets, but I wanted to keep infusing the Acoustic Tuesday show with the Guitars for Vets mantra, and I wanted you to see the good that Guitars for Vets does. Just because we're done fundraising doesn't mean you can't share and spread the good word of Guitars for Vets. In fact, there's a chapter in nearly every state, and if there's not one in your state, you can maybe open one up if you want to. And of course, you can always donate to them. And of course, you can always tell folks about them. In fact, that does the best. The more people that know about Guitars for Vets, certainly the better. And I wanted to honor a couple of their recent graduates from the Chicago chapter. Graduate Jacqueline, here she is with her guitar, big smile on her face, and I want to wish her continued success on her guitar journey. Welcome to the Guitar Geek family. And then I want to head to Nevada, specifically the Guitars for Vets chapter in Gardnerville, Nevada. And here we see Tony, recent graduate, and he is definitely headed in the right direction. He's got the guitar, he's got the beard, he's got a hell of a smile on his face. I mean, what more can you ask for? So he's definitely been set up for success, and just want to thank not only those graduates, but also everyone involved with the Guitars for Vets organization. That's from the offices and the administration end on down to the folks that make their facilities available, to the volunteers that teach, and to the students themselves. It's really cool to see everybody kind of being touched by that healing power of music, something that we all need, and something that we all, to a degree, feel the effects of. So thanks to everybody at Guitars for Vets, and again, do your best to spread the good word of Guitars for Vets and all the good that they do for our veterans coming home, kind of having a hard time adjusting to civilian life and maybe really needing that healing power of music. Now I want to move on to our artist of the week, but I want to dig into the mailbag real quick because I feel like I'm doing the UPS guy an honor in sharing this. Now, the kind folks at AER sent us a ton of stuff to check out. First of all, the Colorizer 2, which I've never even heard of, but I'm excited to dig into because I could see myself using this at a gig. The UPS guy did not have a hard time with this. However, they also sent an Alpha amp, which is a powerhouse little bugger. They also sent a Compact XL, which is a little bit bigger than the Alpha, as you can see. And they also sent the Slope, which is kind of like a monitor wedge type situation. All acoustic amps. And I'm excited because, well, my preliminary thoughts are this. They're totally badass. They sound incredibly transparent to the degree where I'm plugged in, I'm strumming a chord, I don't have the volume up, I slowly bring the volume up, and it sounds like the guitar, but louder. Exactly what you want from an acoustic amp. So I can't wait to do official reviews on those, and I want to thank the folks at AR for making those available. Noah, any arrivals to report in the mailbag over there? You were on a roll there for a couple weeks.
I was, and I feel like the tank is full. So I got nothing this past week.
And on a high note.
Which is fine, totally. Yeah. And I also know that there will probably be some more in my future.
The mail, something about the U.S. Postal Service. Rain, shine, snow, or sleet. They keep delivering.
Is the Postal Service like a box of chocolates?
You never know what you're going to get?
Yeah.
Wasn't that phrase... Isn't there some weird, little glitch in that phrase? Like, you think Forrest Gump says one thing, but he's actually saying something else?
Correct. Yeah, the Mandela effect. It's tied into that, yes.
Do you remember what it was? You never know what you're going to get.
I think it was either, was it life is like a box of chocolates, or life
is a box of chocolates?
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know.
Well, how do you remember it?
I don't know. My memory's not good.
Well, I want to say life is like a box of chocolates.
That's what I want to say.
But I think that was the alternate universe we were in 20 years ago or more.
Speaking of my memory going bad, I noticed a new gray hair on the side of my head this morning. I was combing out the beard, and I thought, whoa, hey, little bugger. How you doing? Let's get on to the artist of the week, shall we? No more grooming talk from me, ever.
Right. That's a lie.
This next artist comes via recommendation from an individual entitled Named Al Team. Just kidding. That was my little joke. It's the Acoustic Life team. Back in April of this year? Yeah, this year. We went to the filling station, local venue here. I call it a venue. It's more of a roadhouse. Like, you don't want to touch anything kind of a place. It's a great place to see music. It's interesting. It's interesting vibes. And we saw the band Joseph, a trio of sisters who have some extremely powerful vocals. To the degree that I was watching them thinking, how are they playing at the filling station? Which is that venue down the road here. And then I thought to myself, this is absolutely amazing. There weren't even that many people there, from what I recall. And Noah, I mean, there were not even that many people there. And then Noah, being the bold music lover that he is, peeks his head into the green room and thanks him for being in Bozeman. And I'm like, I can't believe you just did that. How was that experience for you?
I had to.
Yeah.
It was, we had been listening to them for some time.
Yeah.
Up to that point, and we were fans. What can I say? And it's just you just had that feeling. Was that moment? It's like this moment will pass, and I'll never have this opportunity again. I have to do it. And so, yes, I broke through the security that wasn't there and stuck my head in and had to say, not just thank them for being there, but I had to tell them they were beautiful too. I'd say, you guys are beautiful, great voices. Thank you so much for coming to our little town. And that was my high.
I remember you coming out of, you turned around and you had this smile. And I was like, he is quite the character, that Noah. Anyways, so Joseph is made up of 3 sisters, and I want to get their names right: Natalie, Allison, and Megan. They named the band Joseph as a tribute to not only the town of Joseph, Oregon, but also their grandfather, Joe. And as you'll see in this song here off of their newest album, the song is entitled Fighter, and I think you'll get a notion of just how good the vocals are.
We could just carry on, act like nothing's wrong. Don't leave me in the dark. Don't leave me in the dark. I've gotten used to mess. Got used to shallow breaths. Don't leave me in the dark. Don't leave me in the dark. You think you're keeping the peace? Well, you creep away from me. You keep yourself from me. White eyes, eyes wide. I want a fighter. Don't lie this time.
One of the things that stuns me about this band is the energy that they bring. You know, I said the filling station's a weird place. It is a weird place, but it's one of our music venues here in town, and we support it. But there weren't, a ton of people there. But man, did they bring the energy. I remember thinking, wow, they are having so much fun. I never got the sense that they were phoning it in. I never got the sense that it was drudgery. I mean, it was just sheer joy from first song to last song. And they were just into it. And I think you'll see that in this song as well. They kind of lay it all out there. In fact, the vocals are, I'll just keep harping on the vocals. It's pretty impactful, if I do say so myself. Here's their tune, I Don't Mind.
I don't mind. No, I don't mind. I will love you anyway, with all your demons in the way. Nothing can keep us apart.
Now, I want to listen to one more tune by them, and I actually questioned including this tune because it's the more, or I should say it's the most, can I say it's the most popular tune associated with them? I think it's been featured on some TV shows or something like that. Their first album cycle, their first tour where they were really kind of hitting the mainstream. This was kind of the song that catapulted them into fame, whatever that means. But I really think the song's awesome. And aside from hearing it in every live performance on that first kind of tour cycle, I still love the song. And I wanted to share it with you because it's the one song that got me hooked into them to do some further exploration of my own. So here's their tune, White Flag.
Noise is closing in from all sides, warning all the ways to die. They say you better give up, you better give up. I'll be an army, no, you're not gonna stop me getting ooh. I'll sing a marching song through the halls louder than you. I could surrender, but I'd just be pretending. No, I'd rather be dead than live a lie. Find the white flag, find the white flag, whisper, move the air. Can you hear me?
So now that your heart is melting for Joseph, much like Noah's and mine, I want to introduce you to some of the albums that you should get. Actually, all of the albums you should get. I don't think we can play favorites here. I think this is just one of those, if you don't have any of their albums, this is an entire discography you just go acquire. Just go do it. Go to your local record store, get them all, because you'll enjoy everything. Starting with their most recent release, I want to say it was released October 2019, maybe September 2019. Is that right? Recently.
Yeah.
Late 2019.
Yeah.
The album is entitled Good Luck Kid. It's got kind of the 70s, almost movie poster vibe. Very cool art direction there. And then we have in 2017, the album released was Stay Awake. Prior to that, 2016, I'm Alone, No You're Not, which is, I think, one of my faves. I think it's, of all these, I think it's one of my faves. And then their initial release in 2014, Native Dreamer Kin. So make sure to check those out. To learn more about Joseph, please go to acousticlife.tv/AT116. You'll see all those performances in their entirety, links to purchase the albums, and a little bit more about the band as well. All right, well, we are close to the end, and you're probably wondering, Tony, did you forget about our Guitar Geek trivia? Well, the answer to that little mini trivia question is no. I've got your answer right here, but just to recap the question, here it is. What brand 12-string did Stevie Ray Vaughan play on his 1990 MTV Unplugged performance? Was it a Martin, a Gibson, a Taylor, or a Guild? Well, if you answered Guild, you are correct. Congratulations. Stevie Ray Vaughan called on his Guild F512 during his 1990 Unplugged performance. First of all, I didn't know he played an Unplugged performance until I started doing the research for this question. I also didn't know it was in 1990. And then I looked into the Guild F512 and found out they're still making that model. It's still decked out, and I don't think it comes with... I don't think you can even pay for the upgrade to acquire the Stevie Ray Vaughan skills. I don't think there's a price on that model. But anyways, if you want to try and play like Stevie Ray Vaughan, I think that's a valiant. I think you can make a valiant effort. I think it's something worth shooting for. And if buying a Guild F512 is something that helps you get a little bit closer, then I fully support that decision as well. Tell your spouse or significant other I said it was okay. All right, well. We've wrapped this show up like a burrito, Noah. We've put in the appropriate fixins. We've put in the shredded pork, the cheese, the cabbage, a little hot sauce, a little green chili sauce. The other
Verde.
The Verde.
Salsa Verde.
Yeah,
Okay.
that sauce too.
Yeah.
We found all the sauces. In fact, when the guy asked us what sauce we want, we just said, throw them all in, wrap it up, because this show's coming to an end. But we do have to take a sneak peek into next week. And next week on Acoustic Tuesday, I'm going to bring new meaning to playing a little guitar. You're going to learn about an Acoustic Tuesday viewer from Chicago. I'm going to play a tune dedicated to where my guitar was born, and a passionate, percussive, fingerstyle performer. You're right. Bonus points for alliteration. You're welcome. All right, make sure to tune in next week to catch all of that awesomeness. I want to thank you for sharing your time with us this week on Acoustic Tuesday. Remember, you can catch Acoustic Tuesday every single Tuesday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time here on YouTube. And for your Acoustic Tuesday fix in between Tuesdays, please visit acousticlife.tv, where you can do a deep dive into anything I've ever talked about on the show. Thank you so much again for being a guitar geek. Thank you for sharing your time. And remember, Guitar Geeks Unite. Cheers.